I'm pretty sure that I heard this is National GM Squarebody Truck Heater Core Month. Or maybe I didn't hear that, but you know, this time of year when I'm driving in a truck, I like to be comfortable, and that means I need heat. And this old truck really doesn't have any anymore. So what are the symptoms of a failing heater core? Well, the most obvious are leaks. If you've got coolant on your passenger side floorboard, if your windows are fogging up, if you smell a sweet smell, if you see fog or mist coming from your ducts when you turn the blower on, poor or no heat. Heater cores can become corroded on the inside, whether it's from hard water, rust, just being old. They can also become clogged or corroded on the outside. And it's not uncommon with trucks this old. They've been sitting under trees, pine needles, oak leaves, straw, dirt, and debris. Also, if they've been sitting in storage or they haven't been running, you're going to get rat's nests, squirrels, acorns, insulation, all sorts of things can get inside the ductwork and around the heater core and block it from operating properly. So a heater core is really just another heat exchanger. Coolant passes through the system and heats up the heater core as the engine temperature increases. The truck's blower fan pushes the hot air coming off the heater core through the truck's ductwork and into the cabin. The blend door controls the amount of heat coming through the ductwork, and it's controlled by your HVAC controls, which are cable operated under the dash. Now, what I was saying before about a heater core that can become clogged due to corrosion or critters, well, you can bypass your heater core in an emergency. And you can do that simply by removing your heater hoses and fitting it with a connector. This is the heater core for this truck. Really, there's not too much difference between the 73 to 87 trucks. AC takes one style of heater core. The non-AC versions take another kind. This is a 1980 GMC K15 with a V8. Non-AC from the factory. So this is going to be a pretty simple and straightforward replacement. You don't need a whole lot of tools, and you really don't need a whole lot of time. I'm going to show you how to do it now. Let's get on it. The first thing you need to do, remove your radiator cap, open the petcock for your radiator, and drain the coolant. Next, you're going to loosen your hose clamps to the two heater hoses going through your firewall directly to your heater core. Now, pay attention to where your hoses go. This upper one on this truck goes directly to the radiator, and the bottom one goes to the engine. I'm going to post a diagram so you can see that, but if you need to, take a picture before you do it. You don't want to get these messed up because then you'll affect the flow through the engine. You're ready to pull the hoses off. You may still have a little antifreeze in here. If you want to move a pan underneath here to catch it, that's fine. You can also take some vice grips if you want and pinch these off. And that will eliminate any fluid that may be trapped inside your hose from coming out. And that's important, especially if you've got dogs or cats. On this model, there are 3 bolts, studs, out here, here, and down below. And these are 7/16. You'll need to remove those now. This has a small bit of wiring on a clip. Anyway, be careful. These don't look like they've been out since Reagan was president. And if they feel to you like they're about to snap off, well, then you might have to go to plan B or C. Now the second and the third nuts came off very easily. The first one, well, That was a little touch and go. And I mentioned plan B and C. Well, plan B would be if you feel like this is starting to twist and you might break it, stop. Get a wire brush, try and clean up the threads. Use some PB Blaster. Start to tighten the nut back up to run the nut over the lubricated threads and go back and forth until it feels like you might be able to get it off. If that fails, plan C would be break it off and hope nobody notices. And if they do, tell them it must have been the previous owner. And of course, plan D would be to, well, put new ones in. Now we move to the inside of the truck. There are 4 bolts that hold the bottom of this, connect to the bottom of this glove box, and we're going to remove the glove box. I believe they are 9/32, 7 millimeter. The size varies depending on how many owners the truck's had. For example, this one should have 4. It's got 1, 2, 3, and it looks like somebody needed to borrow that last one. So we're just going to remove 3 and then drop this glove box. And you can use a nut driver. I'm using a ratchet because that's what I got with me. A nut driver is just as easy. Okay. Then you just pull. There's a small tab there. Open this up. And out it comes. Inside the glove box against the back of the firewall, here's the ductwork. There are 2 heater control cables. One's right here, one's right here. There is a clip that needs to be removed on both of these, and then these cables just slid up over this arm. You can use a flathead screwdriver and or needle nose. I kind of prefer the needle nose because if you're prying these little caps off, they have a tendency to fly this way or that way. And then, like my glove box door, you end up putting it back together with 3/4 of the parts. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these off. Now, hopefully you can see all this that's going on. Next, if you see the silver tabs holding those cables to the housing, I'm going to remove those. And these are also 7 millimeter, 9/32, somewhere around there. Usually not very tight. And that's one. And then after I get the second bolt out, I will detach these cables from the housing. And remember which one's which. Just behind the ashtray, below here, you will see another one, and this connects your defrost duct work. And it's the same principle. You have a connector right there that you need to pry off, and then that small bolt right there, and then remove that. Just working it back and forth until I get off of the little groove that it sits in. And then you can either pop it off with the needle nose or just using your hand. Just going back and forth. Next, we're going to start removing this bolt right here that holds this housing. 10 millimeter or the equivalent standard size will do. Out! The heater core and the case holding the core is now out of the car. So I've got this on my bench, and what I'm going to do, there is a gasket, a seal. You can see this insulation, and it's pretty deteriorated. Probably there needs to be something there. So if you don't have any insulation laying around, something to kind of seal around here, you should probably get some. This gasket that there used to be on here is a little raggedy. And this heater core has been in here for a minute. This is bent, and there was fluid leaking down along the firewall. There's also this old, this is pretty bad shape too. Yeah, it's coming apart. What you can do in a pinch, you can use a pool noodle and cut yourself out a gasket. You can double it up if you don't think it's thick enough and use in lieu of that. So next, we're going to remove, there's a small bracket that holds this heater core into this compartment, and it should be 1/4. Now I'm telling you as we go along, I'm using metric sizes, I'm using SAE sizes. Honestly, when you're working on these old square bodies that have had a lot of owners, they're 50 years old, guys working on these old square bodies, they're working out of a Maxwell House coffee can full of nuts and bolts, and they're going to put back whatever threads in because they can't find what they just kicked off the floorboard. So anyway, this should be 1/4, and there's 2 bolts here and up here, and then there's this bracket. This one's kind of rusted in there. Pop it out. Set it to the side. Heater core is out. Before I install this new heater core, I just wanted to take a few seconds and say a couple of words about parts. The company I ordered this heater core from had maybe 6 or 7 listings for basically the same part for this truck, but they weren't the same quality. And the price varied from as little as a half a tank of gas for this truck to significantly more. And you do get what you pay for. I've said this before, whether you're buying from eBay or the dealership, there is going to be a difference in the quality of the part. And if you're trying to save a little money, it may come back and bite you because, I didn't buy the top tier heater core, but I did spend more money than I could have. And that's because next spring I don't want to be firing this up and smell antifreeze or see a puddle under the truck. A lot of this stuff coming from overseas is garbage, and you just have to be careful. So buyer beware. You know, if you're going to hang on, well, even if you're going to flip the truck or you're going to sell the truck, do the next guy right and put a decent part in there. So now it's time to turn around and drive this puppy home. And it's just as simple as reversing what you did. So first thing I'm going to do is lift the box up and get the lines for the core through the firewall, and then I'll support this to hold it until I can start putting the bolt back in here and securing it to the firewall. To kind of help keep your bolts organized, you can use one of these little magnetic trays. They only cost $3 or $4. And that way, if you took 10 bolts, screws out, you're going to put 10 bolts and screws back in more likely than if you were just throwing them down on the floorboards. I'm using new hose clamps going on the heater hoses. I always replace those. If your antifreeze hasn't been changed for a while, if it's got any discoloration to it or it's just weak, put some new antifreeze in as well. Now's the time to do it. Time to start it up. Now, after I've let it idle for a while, the next thing to do, take it for a test drive. So I've driven 5 or 6 miles and it is roasting me right now. I wanted to make sure I've got no air pockets in the system since I drained all the antifreeze out. Make sure your thermostat's opening at the proper temperature. If you've got one that's not the correct one for your engine, that could also give you a problem with not getting enough heat. But anyway, so that about does it. I kind of showed the highlights of putting this back together because, of course, you can just reverse what I did. I would advise, if you are doing this for the first time, it's not hard. Take photographs so that if you're not sure where something goes, or a bolt or a nut or a cable, you can just refer to your photos or go back to this video and follow me through. Anyway, I hope this helped. So thanks for watching, folks. Leave your questions, your comments, your songs, your favorite recipes below. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.